Hey guys, Rob Skiba here, ready to continue highlighting the development of Seed the Series. This is part 2, Nurturing the Seed. As you saw in part 1, a lot of time and effort went into laying the foundation for this project. And from 2010 until today, I have continued to try and get my message out any way that I could, explaining why a series like this is so important. By way of recap, here's a segment from the updated version of the Culturally Relevant Talk.
Seed is based on a ridiculous amount of research for the last 15 years or so that I've been trying to cram into a book that I'm writing right now. It's as a blog series. Our stated mission statement for Seed is to plant seeds that will help others to understand the times that we live in and to walk in the power of the kingdom that comes only through a relationship with Jesus Christ. The challenge is doing it in a way that the world can receive it. And the challenge is for you to pick up on the seeds that we're planting and then use it to water those seeds into a harvest. Right? Something that I talked about in the last session earlier today is the whole question where Yeshua says, "Who do you say that I am?" And I just absolutely love the name Yeshua. I believe there's power in the name of Jesus, as I've said before. I got saved by the name of Jesus, and I've led a lot of people to Christ in the name of Jesus. But the name Yeshua, his given name, is extraordinary. It's a pretty wild name, and the number 33 as well. And the word Yeshua, some of you heard me talk about this already, each letter in the Hebrew language has multiple meanings, which means every word, the Hebrew idiom is every letter has 7 meanings, therefore every word has 70. Because it has the meaning of the word itself, but the word also contains the combined meanings of the letters that comprise the word. And what really got me excited about the word Yeshua is, first of all, it means salvation, but if you read right to left as the Hebrews do, using the meanings of the letters, it translates to the hand that destroys the establishment of the eye. That's who Yeshua is. What did he say? I came to destroy the works of the devil. I believe he did in every way. From his name to the numbers, he was, 33 years old, died after a 3-year ministry, was dead for 3 days, 33.33. Come on, man. It's awesome. That whole conversation took place at Caesarea Philippi, which is at the base of Mount Hermon. Mount Hermon, for those of you who are familiar with the story of Genesis 6, what I call the Genesis 6 experiment, when angels came down to the daughters of men and created angel-human hybrids called Nephilim, they landed on Mount Hermon in the days of Jared. Well, that's where Jesus decided to take his disciples to the base of Mount Hermon to have a little conversation with them. Who do men say that I am? And he said it right in front of the altar to the Greek god Pan, who is the god of shepherds. So the good shepherds stood in front of the Greek god of shepherds and asked a pretty profound question that everybody already knew the answer to. Everybody knew that he was the Son of God that was in front of him, his disciples, right? And everybody called him the Son of God from the day he was born. Angels announced it to, he picks Nathanael, and Nathanael says, "You're the Son of God." Why? Because I saw you under the fig tree. You're going to see greater things than this. Demons declared that he was the Son of God. Everybody told him he was the Son of God. So what's the big deal when Peter says it at the end of his ministry? The big deal is the significance of the location where he took them. That's why when Peter made the statement, Jesus looked at him and said, "Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for flesh and blood did not reveal this to you, but my Father just showed you what we're doing here in Caesarea Philippi at the base of Mount Hermon." Where off to his left was a place to this day known as the Gates of Hades. Off to his right is a foothill. At the top of the foothill is the fortress of Nimrod, the first Antichrist, tried to create a one-world system without God, tried to kill God. It was a very strategic move. His destination is Jerusalem, so why did he take a detour to southern Lebanon to have a conversation with his disciples? Because he was trying to make a point. Because in the last days especially, we're going to have to understand this whole Gates of Hades thing. And I submit that we're also going to have to understand this whole binding and loosing thing he said too, right? Why? Because while the church is sleeping, this is what's happening around the world right now. I don't know if you've been following it. If you came to my last session, you saw the UFO montage that I put together just of mainstream media covering UFO sightings just in the last couple of years. Exponential increase of UFO sightings. Something's going on. Now, we say they're UFOs. That's exactly what they are. Unidentified flying objects. We don't know what they are. They're up there. But there are TV shows trying to tell you what they are, such as the Ancient Aliens series. Anybody see this show? I think there are 6 seasons now or something like that. When this show first came out, I had a friend of mine who went to seminary. He just graduated from Bible college, and he had plans of starting his own Bible school.
He watched season 1 of Ancient Aliens, and he was pretty shook up. Now, I don't want to say he was shaken in his faith entirely. That's a little bit too far. But he was shook up. And he called me. He said, Rob, I know you're into all this kind of weird stuff and researching things and stuff. He says, as Christians, what do we do with this information? Because the evidence is there. The Nazca lions in Peru, the Pumapunku, all these crazy megalithic structures all around the world. UFOs all over the place, all around the world in the sky. Conehead skulls popping out of Peru and Mexico. And what do we do with this stuff? Well, Von Daniken and, crazy hair guy, Giorgio, they're more than happy to tell you, right, that they're ancient aliens. And I thought about it. Here's a friend of mine, just graduated from Bible college, about ready to start his own school, and he does not have a ready defense for this stuff. How many people in the body of Christ have a clue of how to defend against whatever's going on here? Is anybody talking about this in the pulpit, in churches? No. So where are people going to get the answer? Movies and television. Unfortunately, they're taking you down the wrong path. Genesis tells us that the Nephilim were in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God, who are angels throughout the scriptures, came unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them. The same were the mighty men which were of old, the men of renown. These are the gods of mythology. The heroes of old, right? And every single ancient culture, the whole idea of the Sethite theory doesn't show up until 200 AD. Nobody thought about the Sethite theory until Julius Africanus woke up one day and said, you know what, I don't think I believe that. So he comes up with this ridiculous theory that kissing cousins could create giants, or try to explain away the giants of the Bible, instead of just taking it for what it says. I choose to take the Bible literally. When it says what it says, that Og of Bashan, his bed was 15 to 18 feet long, I'm just going to say, okay. The Goliath was 9 to 12 feet tall. Okay. Amos 2:9 says the Amorites got as tall as cedar trees. Okay. How does that happen if kissing cousins are what we're dealing with? It's nonsense. Julius Africanus made up that theory, and Calvin promoted it. But David Wilcock wondered, what in the world happened in 3000 BC that altered our DNA by 7%? What just so happens that falls in the same time frame that Genesis 6 took place. This is a chart that I created a while back to show you what's going on in the 3000 BC time frame right there. And Jesus said, as it was in the days of Noah, where you have all kinds of creation of hybridization going on right there that corrupted all flesh in Genesis 6:12. Is it a coincidence that a little kid throws a rock into a cave, here's a jar crack, and out pops the Dead Sea Scrolls, and in the Dead Sea Scrolls is a book that tells us all about what we're seeing in the skies today? And that happened 1 year before the Roswell crash happened, and the modern UFO era began. And it has steadily increased, such that this is a UFO that shut down an airport in China, I think it was 2010. In my DVD, The Mount Herman Roswell Connection, I show you mainstream news reports, global mainstream news reports for 8 minutes, 8-minute UFO montage. That was back in the end of 2011, beginning of 2012. It's hard to keep up now. I'd be making a new video every day to try to keep up with what's going on in the world today. And it used to be crazy talk, right? But today, you got mainstream people. How many of you know a mile-wide spaceship parked over Stephenville, Texas in 2008? And ABC News and everybody's reporting on it. It's not crazy talk anymore. It's people are scratching their heads and going, okay, there's something going on. How many pastors are even dealing remotely looking at this subject? There's a great deception coming, right? Jesus said there's going to be coming a deception that's going to be so great that even the elect could be deceived by it. What do you think is going to happen when a mile-wide spaceship decides to set up shop like V or Independence Day over the city and they say, yep, we're your creators. They show you the holographic movie of Jesus. Yeah, he's one of ours. We created your guy you call Adam. What are you going to do with that? When they put so much evidence in front of your face, what are you going to do with that? What's the average Christian going to do with that? What's it going to do with their faith? Somehow there's an apostasy coming, a falling away, due to a great deception. And if the church isn't talking about it, where are the people going to get the truth? Solomon said, as it was, it will be again, right? What has been will be again. What has been done will be done again. There's nothing new under the sun. It puts a little more perspective into what's going on in Matthew 24:37. As it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be at the coming of the Son of Man. In the days of Noah, it's really interesting when you start diving into the research of what was going on in those last 120 years. Genesis 6:3. He says, except, right? He says that his spirit would no longer dwell with man. His days will be 120 years. Well, and he says, because man is flesh. Well, man was flesh, says Adam. What's he talking about there? I believe that he created our bodies in the image and likeness of himself to have a home for himself, right? Paul says when you accept Jesus, what happens? Our body becomes what?
Temple.
The temple of the Holy Ghost, right? Well, if you start corrupting this temple, messing up God's house, he says, I'm not going to hang out with you anymore. So when you start blending, how many of you know the creation account says everything must reproduce after its own kind? So now when you start mixing a bull and a human and a horse and a human and a goat and a human, and you start getting characters like this that every ancient culture was depicting in stone, what's that doing to the original image that God created? It's corrupting it. And he said, if you guys don't knock it off, you got 120 years to repent. After that, my spirit's not going to dwell with you anymore. And Jesus says, as it was in those days, so it will be in our days. How many of you know, if you turn on the evening news, they're talking about the blending of animals and humans today?
Yes, sir.
150 animal-human chimeras were announced and created in the UK in 2011. In 2012, right? If that's what they're telling us, what are they not telling us? I mean, seriously. I came back, I've been to Greece twice, and my second trip to Athens, I was struck by the fact that you can't look in any direction without seeing the toppled remains of a temple, of a statue of a god, or some representation of a centaur, a minotaur, a satyr, the hybrids of Greek mythology. And I came home from that trip, and I told my wife, I said, you know those animal-human hybrids of Greek mythology? She said, yeah. I said, I think they were real. Because when I was over there, I was thinking, 4,000 years from now, nobody's going to remember Yoda. Right? Why did I think that? Because George Lucas said his stated objective was to create a modern mythology. Now, we're taught in school the Odyssey and the Iliad, right? This was just the ravings of a blind poet named Homer. Really? Why do they still have it in their collective consciousness to this day, 4,000 years later? They believe this stuff. I had a friend of mine who grew up in Greece. And I was talking about the Greek mythology. He said, Rob, I got to correct you. I said, what's the matter? He says, you keep saying this as myth, but I got to tell you, when I grew up in the public schools in Greece, we were taught that as our history. The way you guys are taught about Abraham Lincoln and George Washington and all that stuff, pilgrims and whatnot, they were taught about Zeus and Apollo and Hercules as real. So I'm telling my wife, I said, I think these hybrids were real. We had a nice conversation, went to bed. Next morning I wake up, and she's checking her email in the other room, and she sees an RSS news feed from the BBC that said scientists had successfully cloned a sheep with a human heart. Mm-hmm. And the article went on to say, if we continue this type of experimentation, the genes are going to fuse together, and then we're going to have animal-human hybrids, and now we're going to have a lot of ethical issues to deal with. That was the next morning after I had the conversation. That stuff, I think it was real. Boom, newser, thank you for confirmation, Lord. It's frightening because this is what's happening. And Jesus said, except those days be shortened, no flesh would be saved. It's happening. The corruption of flesh is coming. And you got movies like this. This is a movie Splice, which I always say this, don't watch it. I don't recommend you watch it. And everybody, somebody goes and watches it. Rob, I told you not to watch it.
I watched it. It was horrible.
It's a terrible movie. Don't watch it. The only reason I watched it is because I was familiar with the topic of what it was, so I was curious about a movie dealing with transhumanism, but it's a terrible movie. Don't watch it. Okay? It was one of those, I had to take a shower after I watched it, clean up. It's terrible. But, they're depicting these things. Scientists in the movie, they blend animals and humans together, and this particular creature they call Dren goes through this metamorphosis from this weird-looking hybrid creature as an adolescent and grows up, and they try to dress her up and make her all sexy and stuff as she became an older in the movie. But by the end of the movie, she morphs into a male, demonic, fallen angel-looking creature. And in the special features, the director said, we always envisioned Dren as a genetically engineered angel. That was their stated objective when they created this movie. There is an agenda. I believe there's something in motion that I refer to as the Omega Plan. How many of you believe we're in the last days? We're coming close to it. Pretty much everybody? Well, the Illuminists do too. And they have a plan, and they're trying to implement it. And it's all about our secret societies, all the secret societies, Freemasonry, all that stuff. They're all about the resurrection of Osiris. All of their rituals, all of their, different degrees of Freemasonry, it's all about the resurrection of Osiris, who is Nimrod.
Now, I've said it before, this stuff makes for fantastic science fiction. I think it'll make for great, intriguing imagery for television, but I also think it's true. So we can dispense truth through a show like Seed because the world is calling for disclosure. They're ready for it now. We want the aliens to come. Remember the scene in Independence Day where all the people were standing on top of the building? Take me! And the thing opens up, blew up the building. People are waiting for their brothers from space. And meanwhile, the media continues to lie to us. Oh, no, it's just a failed missile. That's what a failed missile does, guys. Okay? It doesn't do what the Norway spiral did. Meanwhile, if you start looking around the world, you see things like that etched on stone all around the world, where people have etched spirals in the sky, and underneath it, there's a bunch of people running for their lives. Oh, no! Follow the goats. Right? I don't know if you'll be able to see it here, but, here's some of the ancient carvings right there. There's a Norway spiral. It's hard to see with the lights the way it is. But here are pictograms and whatnot on cave walls all around the world. Go where the goats are going. Follow the goats. People running for their lives, spirals in the sky. We had the Norway spiral. There were spirals over, I think, Taiwan. There was one over Australia. Meanwhile, there's stuff like this being shown all the time on the Ancient Aliens series on the History Channel, the Nazca lines, and look at the bottom of the runway there, a spiral. Right? Something's coming back, I believe. And I believe it's important that we do shows things like this. Something has got to happen. Something's got to change so we can get this message out to the masses, because the scriptures say there's a coming great deception that'll be so great that even the elect will be deceived by it. Again, that is our goal for Seed.
And if you'd like to watch the rest of that presentation, the link is in the description below. As mentioned in Part 1, Prophecy and News was initially very supportive of our work, and even though it was a short-lived relationship, the exposure we got with them was still very beneficial to us. In January of 2012, I published my first book, Babylon Rising and the First Shall Be Last, based on the blog series I had spent all of 2011 writing. Well, the blog series actually started as a result of an experience I had at the end of 2010. At that time, there were a lot of people talking and speculating about the upcoming date of December 21st, 2012, based on the Aztec calendar stone, Mayan prophecies, and all that stuff. Well, something significant occurred 2 years prior on December 21st, 2010 that, for the most part, went completely under the radar.
December 21st, last year, 2010. My wife and I are late nighters. We stay up late at night, and a lot of times we go out for a walk, like 2 o'clock in the morning. And we were out December 21st, the winter solstice. Everybody's talking about December 21st, 2012. Well, December 21st, 2010, we were going out for a walk. Looked up in the sky at about 2:22 in the morning, and I saw the moon going into a full lunar eclipse for 72. Remember that number, 72? 72 demons and pentagrams and all that. 72 minutes, the moon went into a blood-red lunar eclipse, floating over the shoulders of Orion, who is also Nimrod. Nimrod lost his head to Esau's sword, right? I looked up and I saw a decapitated blood-red head, looked like, floating over the shoulders of Orion at 2:22 in the morning. Oh, by the way, 2:22 in the morning Central Standard Time is 3:22 in the morning Eastern Standard Time. 322 is the coveted number of the Skull and Bone Society, of which both Bush family, but the whole Bush family, has been strongly associated with, as was Kerry. 2 Illuminist, 322. What's that? A skull? A decapitated head on top of a pile of bones? 322. What was happening in Iraq at that very moment? Iraq had just announced the foundation of its newly formed government. And the entire planet, you could look this up for yourself, shook. The seismographic monitors that check earthquake activity around the world, every one of them went into the black that night.
Today is December 21st, Tuesday, 2010 at 6:13 p.m. Central Standard Time. And we are looking at the live internet seismic server, which is still recording a gigantic earth movement at all stations around the world. Now, this began last night at approximately 1 to 2 hours before the eclipse. And originally, I thought this may be a signature from the Iran earthquake that happened yesterday, which was a 6.5 on the Richter. However, it continued all night and into today with a crescendo in Japan of a 7.4. And now, as of, and I'll just click on any one of these, I mean, all shaking through the roof, but we'll just click on Norway's, let's say. And as of 23:47 Greenwich Mean Time, we still have a gigantic disturbance happening. And this is not the Japan disturbance. This is some other anomaly that is showing up all around the world. I have never seen anything like this in the time that I've looked at this data set. I mean, in Arizona, it's showing just off the chart. The evidence speaks for itself. And you can see the date timestamp, 12/21/2010, 16:49 Mountain Standard Time, which is 23:49 Greenwich Mean Time. So, just to prove that this is not showing up, and they're either censoring this data or it's some other kind of anomaly, is the current USGS World Global readout of earthquakes. And within the last hour, we had a 5.1 aftershock in Japan, which any geologist would be able to tell you. If you want to go back and look at prior data, you can see that a 5.1 does not show up as a huge off-the-chart earthquake all around the world at all the heliographs around the world.
What's going on? I don't know.
I later came to believe that our Gregorian calendar is actually off by 2 years, and the events everyone was looking for occurred on December 21st, 2010, instead of 2012. Regardless, this was the catalyst that started everything for us. After that event, I immediately sat down and wrote my first blog, 72 and a Red Moon Rising. And I kept adding to it almost daily for nearly all of 2011. If you'd like to read those blogs, you can go to babylonrisingblog.com. This was the content from which all of my later books and videos was derived. Now, in October of 2012, about a month before we got the invite to speak in South Africa, my friend Jeff Randall called and wanted to meet with me. I had met Jeff shortly after I first moved to the Dallas area in 2003, but he ended up moving away shortly thereafter, and we hadn't really seen or spoken with each other in years. Well, he wanted to reconnect and said he was going to be back in the Dallas area and had something that could help me with my presentations on the Nephilim. So of course I was intrigued, and I missed my friends, so we scheduled time to get together at a Cracker Barrel. And this is what he had to give me.
Hey guys, my name is JB Randall. I own a website called Nephilim Skulls. NephilimSkulls.com is the domain. This is my little friend. This has been seen all over the internet for probably going on a decade now. It's become somewhat famous to people who are keeping up with what's going on today with the Nephilim and hybrids and other stuff, whatever people are calling it these days, and Anunnaki and 100 names for it. But this right here is actually a casting that has been made famous. The original is housed in Peru, down by the Nazca lines, and it took me a year to find somebody that actually both had clearance as well as had access to it to go down and get a casting. And so anyway, she was Peruvian. She's probably about 4.5 feet tall. That's a small people, especially 2,000 years ago, which is about when she lived, 2,000 years ago. And but you do see the extreme elongation of the skull, which is prevalent with the offspring and descendants of the Nephilim.
Needless to say, we had a very interesting lunch meeting at that Cracker Barrel restaurant. He gave me the skull, which was a replica of a female cone-headed person. I later got a hold of a male counterpart and painted them both to look more realistic. Those are the skulls you've likely seen behind me in many of my YouTube videos. And here's a clip of my friend Dr. Judd Burton giving his professional opinion of the female skull.
Suture patterns in the skull are off. This one lacks the separation that you would find in a normal human skull. On the top here, there should be a suture here. There's not one. The sutures, of course, are basically the interlocking joints that you would find in the skull. What I notice here also is that while this looks on the surface to be cranial deformation, it seems to me that there's more cranial capacity. Of course, without having done the anthropometry on the skull myself, but there's more cranial capacity here. It's not as pronounced in skulls such as the Chongo skulls from Ica, which have very high vaulted domes, and you can visibly see that you're looking at probably about 25%. But you're definitely looking at a skull here that displays some anomalous features. And there is an extra foramen in the back of the skull, and you would probably have to zoom in to find it. But this is probably a foramen. It could be, I suppose it could be trepanation, but this is probably another foramen, which is one of the things that I noticed on a number of the skulls in a Paracas collection. And my question was, what is this doing here? Well, there are a number of reasons. It could be carrying extra blood supply to the brain. There could be additional nerve bundles that would attach in some way to the vertebral column. But there's something going on in the skull morphologically that goes beyond simple cranial deformation.
Indeed, Jeff was right. Nephi, as I came to call her, really did help me a lot in my Nephilim research and ability to share it publicly. By December of 2012, I had published my second book, Archon Invasion, The Rise, Fall, and Return of the Nephilim. Both of my books quickly began to climb the charts and became Amazon bestsellers, which was a good thing because when Prophecy in the News ditched us, we really needed the income. Now, to be clear, an Amazon bestseller is not the same as a New York Times bestseller. Those who reach that status become rich and famous. An Amazon bestseller simply means it's a best-selling book within the category it is listed, which is still a good thing, but no one was getting rich over here. That said, we were able to eat, keep the roof over our head, and the lights on, which was certainly a blessing for us. As my research continued to expand, I started sharing this information on YouTube, Facebook, and other social media outlets. And it didn't take long at all before my materials started getting international attention. Next thing I knew, I was traveling the world on the public speaking circuit doing huge conferences talking about the Nephilim, Nimrod, mythology, hybrids, transhumanism, the singularity, UFOs, aliens, demons, government conspiracies, end times prophecy, and much, much more. As a result, the more research I did, the more the story potential for Seed the Series continued to increase. During the Prophecy Summit conference in 2012, Doug Hamp and I debated on stage about the issue of whether or not there were multiple incursions of a repeat of Genesis 6. We both enjoyed it, and about a month later, Doug asked what I thought about the idea of starting a show together based on the fact that we have disagreements and yet can have civilized dialogue about them. So in 2013, we partnered together to create Quest for Truth. If you'd like to see those episodes, go to questfortruth.net. He and I also found ourselves doing a fair amount of large conferences together between 2013 and 2015. Over the course of this long journey, however, having been to and spoken at many of these events, I've realized that conferences, YouTube videos, blogs, and books are great, but we're still not reaching the masses. We're reaching a few 100,000 to maybe a few million at best. My contention is that we can reach 300 million people in this country and nearly 8 billion around the world with the same messages, but much more efficiently and quickly with a mainstream TV series. All the time I hear accusations, Skiba's all about the money, as if I'm trying to somehow enrich myself, which, if you've been paying attention to what I've been saying and doing over the past decade, that's beyond laughable. Besides, if that were true, why am I putting all of my content online for free? And why do I consistently talk about topics that get me banned, blocked, and blacklisted from the in-crowd? Yes, I have books and DVDs for sale, but those things are all based on free content readily available as blogs, podcasts, YouTube videos, and on multiple websites that I've spent a lot of time creating. People buy my stuff because they want to, not because it's their only option. Yes, of course, I need to eat, pay my bills, and provide for my family like anyone else has to do, but beyond meeting our basic living expenses, my entire drive when it comes to raising money is to fund the project I believe has the potential to reach the entire world with powerful and engaging content that is not being spoken about from a biblical worldview in a way that they can actually receive it. You see, our enemy knows what works and has been taking full advantage of it for decades. They are not wasting time with conferences and blogs. Rather, our opposition is reaching this world with their messages through all forms of mainstream media, arts, and entertainment every day. And I've become convinced if we are to become as good at telling the truth as they are at telling lies, then we need to step up and do better. Because by comparison, clearly what we have been doing thus far isn't working. As George Lucas rightly stated, the influence of the church, which used to be all-powerful, has been usurped by film. And the thing the world understands that the church does not is they get the concept that every dollar spent on the high-quality production of media, arts, and entertainment equates to one person being effectively reached with their message. This is why they have no problem spending over $300 million on a movie project or $10 to $15 million per episode for a TV series. Because they know they will easily be reaching the equivalent amount of people with whatever message they're putting out. The sooner Christians realize this formula and begin to do the same thing, the sooner we can become just as effective at reaching the same numbers of people. I mean, if they are willing to spend nearly $400 million in order to reach billions of people with the wrong Son of God saves the world message, how much more should we be doing with the right message? With that in mind, I'm going to be straight up with you here. Everything I'm trying to do costs money. A lot of money. And especially in these early days of the project, we always had very little of it. Still, we did what we could with what we had. In 2013, I was able to raise enough support to get some upgrades to my computers, a better graphics card, and some animation software that I would teach myself. And all that would give me the opportunity to try to improve the trailer, starting with giving my Azazel character an upgrade. As I finished the animations, I would incorporate them into the older version of the trailer. I also started messing around with After Effects and began recruiting friends to play various characters. Here's my first attempt at visual effects showing Zach's arm growing back. Granted, none of this is perfect nor on par with Pixar or Industrial Light and Magic, but it was the best I could do for a guy on a limited budget working out of an apartment with a home computer and whatever software I could afford. Realizing I still had a long way to go before my animation and visual effects skills would be where I needed them to be, or before I could hire others to do a better job, I decided to go a different route. By this time I had several completed scripts in hand and some fairly decent recording equipment that I've accumulated over the years, so the decision was made to produce a portion of the Seed pilot episode as an audio drama series. Now, during the same time, as I was posting updates on Facebook and stuff like that, John Mason, the guy I mentioned earlier who had responded to my music competition, well, he was doing some music loops for Scott Rockenfield, who was the founding member and drummer of the band Queensryche. And as a result, he was working with Scott, and Scott was like, hey, what have you been up to lately? And John was telling him about this project called Seed that he had seen, and he was doing some music bits for me. And Scott became very intrigued, and he got real excited about it and said, hey, can you put me in contact with this Rob Skiba guy? And John's like, sure. So I get this email one day, and Queensryche is one of my favorite bands, and I often have their Empire album playing in my car stereo. And in fact, that day, he goes, yeah, well, Scott Rockenfield wants to get a hold of you. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, can I give him your contact information? I'm like, yeah, sure. So he gave Scott my information, and Scott reached out to me, and eventually ended up flying out to L.A., and he flew down. I think he lives in Seattle, I believe. Whatever the case may be, he was in L.A., and we ended up going out to eat one night and hanging out, and I was telling him about my project, and he got real excited about it and produced some music for me. And he was really interested in becoming the composer for the series, which I still would like to have him do if he's still available and interested in doing it. This is a few years ago now, but he had composed some really great pieces for the trailer that I had created, and within the piece that he did, I found what I considered to be the perfect music for our opening title credits.
My name is Zach Randall. Everyone thinks I'm dead. But I'm not.
Lots of cool things were happening back then. I no longer had my big studio space though, but I rented a small office and I got busy planning out how I was going to do the audio drama. Once I was ready to go, I put a casting notice on my website and posted it to Facebook. I had a good response both locally and throughout the country as a result, and I was blessed to have many people get involved with the audio drama, but the first person to respond was Rick Hummer, who would immediately breathe life into the project. I created sides for each of the characters and put up a brief description of who they were and what the scene was about. And he decided to go for the part of a fallen angel, and the scene was this fallen angel was torturing this person. And not only did Rick send me an audition of himself doing it, but he actually produced a mini scene for me, the complete scene where he played the character and the victim and created sound effects and music to it. Check this out. This is what he sent to me as his audition.
Please don't do this. I'm begging you. I'll do anything you want. Anything.
You're already doing exactly what I want.
God, please help me.
Oh, I love it. Did you hear that? Listen, butterflies. Listen.
Please, God, please don't let this happen. I'll do anything.
Yes. No one else suffers quite like that. This kind doesn't even put up a fight. Their spirit is so strong, yet they remain totally unaware of the power within them. Observe.
No, please don't. Why are you doing this?
Because I want to release you from this meat suit. Just imagine the fun we can have then. Now extend yourselves and save him if you can.
And that was my first response to the project. I was completely jacked out of my mind excited. Wow, if this is how it's going to start, I can't wait to see what happens next. Rick quickly became a good friend and proved to be an extremely talented guy and valuable asset to this project. In fact, I cast him as my narrator as well as a few of the characters in the story. Here's a little behind the scenes of what it was like working with Rick, bringing my characters to life.
Looks like the same writing we saw in Damascus.
Cool.
Looks like the same writing we saw in Damascus.
Boy, you sounded just like Michael Clark Duncan right there, man.
Looks like we saw the same. Looks like the same writing we saw in Damascus.
Right on.
Looks like we saw the same writing. Looks like the same writing we saw in Damascus.
That's great.
Looks like we saw the same. Looks like the same writing we saw in Damascus.
Very cool. And okay, let's do the ad lib against Azazel. So everybody get down. I got this. You want some? Eat this, beast.
Everybody get down! Oh, you want some of this? Eat this, beast! You want some of this? Eat this, beast! He just threw Jakes like a rag doll. Everybody run, we gon' die!
I ain't dying down here.
I ain't dying down here! I am not dying down here! I am not gonna die down here!
Perfect. And then he gets it. Wah!
Wah! 'Wah! 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 ' Sorry, I'm literally leaning back and screaming.
I know, I can see it, man. It's awesome.
Ah!
Perfect, dude.
Ah!
Wow, that was a good death throw right there.
As the creature turns back toward the others, its massive spiked tail impales Pierce.
Go! Get out of here! I got this! Hey! Over here, freak! Yeah, that's it! Come to Papa, you mother!
It grabs Calhoun by the head and tosses the 250-pound man like a rag doll into a distant wall.
Make no mistake, this was done about as grassroots as you can get, but we had a lot of fun, and other actors were brought in for the rest of the cast. Rick and I did our recordings via Skype, and I worked with the other actors in my little office space there, and we recorded everything in front of a few tabletop microphones that were surrounded by these homemade sound booths that I made out of clothing storage bins that I got at IKEA.
All right, so Preston and Lance would be on that one. And this thing goes up, and Phoenix goes down, and it falls in a ditch. Phoenix is down! I got him. Cover me. You all right?
Yeah, thanks.
Red, look out! And yeah, well, that's pop, and then you just lost your arm. So yeah, fake Luke Skywalker, Empire Strikes Back. Yeah, there you go. Give it to me a couple times. Someone's coming here. What are they doing up there?
It sounds better in your head, and then it comes out, and you're like, what the hell was that?
What was that? Yeah,
It was a very modest, no-budget production, but as I said, we had a lot of fun doing it. We were eventually able to get 3 episodes completed, and if I do say so myself, I think it came out really good, on par with anything you've heard for like an audio book or audio drama, currently on the market. And we started pumping that out, and word about Seed quickly began to spread on social media once again. Around the same time, back in 2014, I began working on a video game concept for Seed.
I think this could be a really fun gameplay right here. That's sort of temple run-ish, but more 2D instead of 3D. Hopefully, be a bit easier to program.
It really is.
So then when they finally, assuming they can get to their objective within the allotted amount of time, and again, they can win time by getting a certain amount of coins or, credits or whatever you call it. Of course, if we make it difficult for them to get these little credits here by putting landmines around them, only a really good gamer is going to get all the credits necessary, because there's going to be some pretty, tight spots to try to get some of these. So, we want to make it as hard as possible for them to get added time simply by getting these.
Even as plans were also made to turn the screenplay into a fiction novel and comic book series too. Again, naturally, all of this cost money, and as usual, I had very little of it, so we're only able to do a little bit here and there.
If he's not dead, go down to sliding. See, I already got that implemented, the sliding. I just got to figure out the collision part of it and then slap it in the game. So that's sitting ready.
Sometimes volunteers would pop in for a while and help, then life would get in the way or something else would happen and they would have to drop out. This became very frustrating for me. It was hard to get anything done like that. It seemed like we were always taking 2 steps forward and 1 step back, and sometimes even 1 step forward and 2 steps back. Lots of things were in the works, but other than the 3 episodes we did for the audio drama, nothing was getting completed. Meanwhile, I was still doing lots of research, and I was publishing books and YouTube videos while doing a lot of traveling, doing experiments and conferences, having debates and things like that. In fact, this occupied most of 2015 to 2018. And I have to say, that was another rough season for us. It seemed like every time I got into another topic of research, it led to significant backlash and difficulties. But I didn't have much of a choice. The overarching themes of Seed were practically demanding it of me. As the story of Seed starts to gel in my head, how am I going to tell this story? I thought of like having a special forces unit that deals with X-Files fringe type stuff, right? So I'm like, okay, so that's my main character, the special forces guys. And then I got turned on to this TV series called The Unit, which was all about like Delta teams, special forces guys. And I really liked The Unit. And so then I realized, okay, Seed, what is Seed? Seed is Lost meets The Unit wrapped up in the X-Files. So if you could take the elements, the weird, freaky elements, and the storytelling style of Lost, cool story in the present, referring back to the past, cliffhanger for the future.
Love it.
With a team of special forces guys that deal with X-Files stuff. Put all that in a blender, you're going to get Seed. So essentially, it's all of the research I've ever done. And you talked about challenging things. Okay, he would take me to a certain level with Seed. I'm like, it's happening. It would look like it's right. Looks like the financing is on the door. It looks like everything's there. And then something would fall apart. And then Father would go, hey, I want you to look into this. What? And typically this I was to look into was a paradigm shifter of enormous magnitude. And maybe I'm a glutton for punishment, but I couldn't resist diving into those topics. I didn't really feel like I had a choice, to be honest with you. Probably because I was praying Jeremiah 33:3 and actually asking for such revelation. I guess you got to be careful what you pray for, because it often comes with a price. And to be perfectly honest, I was truly afraid that some of the topics I was diving into would literally cause me to lose everything I'd fought so hard to achieve for the past 5 years. I actually had people warning me that it would. Sheila's father was staying with us on hospice, and some of his last words before he died were warnings not to go down this path. It could ruin us, but I had to do what I felt I was being led to do. And at first, the cost was indeed quite high. It almost broke me, and for a while, it looked like I may have sunk this project. People were bailing left and right. We were losing supporters every time I turned around. But in the logo of Seed itself, I had written a tagline that literally demanded a deeper investigation and perhaps acceptance of the ancient past.
You have a tagline, right? So that tagline is the keys to the future lie buried in the past, right? Yeah. And some of the content, I think we were talking about this earlier, what sets you apart from all the other content that's out there is that it is somewhat biblically based. I mean, the idea is to get someone, to spark their curiosity about, the word of Yah, that perhaps they don't even know that seed was sown, but the Ruach does, right? And the Holy Spirit can stir up a noble theme in our hearts. And so what are some of the, can you just really quick tell us, what are some of the content, what content have you sort of woven into the storyline?
The easiest thing to say is everything that you have come to know me for is going into it.
Like the Targums, like where have you pulled content from? Where have you pulled
everything?
Really?
Yeah, everything. My goal is to take everything I've ever researched and put it into this. So the overarching story is the Seed War. Starts in Genesis 3:15, ends in Revelation.
Fantastic.
So that's the primary theme. But how do we get there? I want to do 6 seasons, 12 episodes per season, so 72 episodes total. So it's a 72 episode story arc. Okay, but my goal is, look, Scripture says that his word will not return void. So if I can just get you to open that book, well, it's not my job to get you saved. That the Holy Spirit does that.
Right.
I'm there to present a message that the Holy Spirit can work with. I got to be, we are supposed to be his voice out here. I don't hear voices calling out from the sky. We are the body of Christ now. Right? We are his hands. We are his eyes, his ears, and so if whatever I'm doing can provoke people to open their Bible, the Holy Spirit's going to take over from there. His word is not going to return void. And all of it, Scripture itself says, all scripture is profitable, right? For doctrine, for reproof and correction and righteousness and all that, right? There are some people, as we say here in Texas, bless their heart, that are convinced that such and such a topic is the only thing that's important, right? Their entire minute. And look, I'm not knocking them. If they are called to a specific topic to be experts in, I get that. But don't come after me because you don't think my topic is as important as your topic is. Because there are ministries out there who do that. That they're all locked into whatever it is that they feel God has called them to, and they now think they're the hand saying to the foot, "I have no need of you." This is the only thing that's important. I've had many discussions. I'm not going to mention any names, but with some of the big leaders in both the Christian community and the Torah community, that you should be talking about that. I'm like, this is the Bible. I'm going to talk about it. Some ministries put out videos, theological junk food. I'm like, you know what? You can call it theological junk food if you want to, but I've got a massively huge fruit basket that shows that this is actually good bait that's bringing people into the kingdom.
Now, if I may ask this question, how many of you would say you've either found a deeper understanding of the scriptures or a closer relationship with Yahuwah, or both, as a result of any of those topics up there? Would you please stand? If you don't mind. I'm actually going to take a picture of this for myself. Actually, I'll do a video here. I'm going to do a little video here to remind me Thank you. I often need to remind myself why I do this. Steve asked me how I'm doing in the bathroom. I'm like, yeah, I'm ready, I guess. What are you talking about? The usual. Because that's the way I'm feeling. I'm just being honest with you. There have been many times when I just wanted to throw the towel and say, I'm done, forget it. I am not comparing myself to Jeremiah here, but I understand the weeping prophet. He had a message nobody wanted to hear. And then I'd go to the post office thinking, I'm done, I'm not doing this anymore, I'm throwing the towel, and there'd be some dude there, he would see me and say, you can't quit. I'm like, what are you talking about? You can't quit. And he would share some testimony, like this gentleman did a few minutes ago. Shared a testimony. I heard many testimonies last night, and the words thank you are just, they're inadequate to express what I'm truly feeling. So I'm going to treasure that video I just shot a minute ago, because call me crazy, but theological junk food does not create that kind of fruit. It doesn't. John talked about fishermen. We're supposed to be fishers of men, right? And fishermen use different types of bait depending on what type of fish they're going after. So apparently this is some pretty good bait because it's bringing in a whole lot of fish. So I will continue to do what I'm doing so long as the fish are coming in. Thank you.
Fishers of men. This is bait that's bringing in a lot of fish. I wouldn't be talking about it if it wasn't. The only reason I have continued to talk about any of the things that I've talked about is because I see enormous amounts of fruit coming in as a result of those. And most of the stuff that I've known for talking about are the things that people get hung up on when they open up the Bible. And they're like, why is God killing everybody? Why is this? Why, if you don't understand what's going on in Genesis 6, you have no clue what's going on in the rest of the Bible.
Perfect. The word of Yahuwah is spectacular. It is spectacular and it is captivating. But again, I think because of the way that religion has been so conformed that, there were really, they set limitations on what it is that we could access or what we could read or how we can study. And so there was this sort of norm that was put into place. And if you went beyond that, then you were apostasy, you were falling away. Oh no, you're getting into stuff you shouldn't.
And this is precisely why I think what I'm trying to do here is a better way. With blogs, books, conferences, podcasts, and YouTube videos, it's far too contentious, especially on social media. Everyone wants to fight, accuse, label, ridicule, and go on witch hunts. But put the same content in a thought-provoking fictional narrative and no one cares. Or if they do, it simply becomes a matter of discussion rather than assault and inquisition. I have to believe guys like Gene Roddenberry really understood that. Star Trek regularly dealt with social, political, and even religious themes all the time. But when put in a fictional dramatic narrative, it was far less contentious than such things would have been in any other setting. What I've learned is the thing about the fiction and fantasy genres in particular is that people go into them suspending their disbelief. This means the audience is now open to believing whatever the filmmakers have to say. Thus, more often than not, if the stories are done well and presented with excellence, TV shows and movies actually end up shaping culture. This is good or bad depending on what it is they've used to do so and how they've chosen to shape it. Was it a good message or a bad one? The point is, such genres have the potential to make an extreme impact on the world. People really embrace it, so long as it's not preachy. I mean, there's a reason grown men and women, businessmen, professionals of all walks of life dress up for sci-fi conventions. I've been there. I've seen them. I've done it myself. I mean, I've seen people get married in Klingon, for crying out loud. Thousands of YouTube channels and fan-based websites are created to perpetuate the fictional narratives that have captured the imagination of billions. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the power media has to affect the minds of entire generations. Looking back now as I'm making this, I suppose, in a way, 2015 through 2018 was like my Isaac test. Was I willing to obey and sacrifice the dream I truly believe Yahuwah had birthed through me? Because that's what it felt like. It's beyond the scope of this video to get into the details, but I know I was commissioned to do all that I did in that season. Just like with Seed, I had countless confirmations and amazing blessings all through that journey. Even through all the many trials and abuses that came at me, I was experiencing the favor of Yahuwah like no other time in my life. And when I came out of the storm in 2019, instead of having lost it all, I found I had a whole lot of fruit in my basket and realized somehow Yahuwah had grown my YouTube base from about 50,000 to over 200,000 subscribers. Which of course means more potential supporters and a much larger talent pool for the project. And that's exactly what we'll need if we're going to be able to crowdfund this. You see, I'm against the Hollywood studio system, and I always knew Seed would have to be crowdfunded if I was ever going to be able to retain 100% creative control of the content. If I went through the standard studio route, they could censor me, control my content, and even cancel the series prematurely if they wanted to. On the flip side, if I were to seek out large investors to fund the series, they typically want some say in the production and usually expect significant returns on their investment. But I want the series to become self-funding, so I'd rather roll the returns back into production than have to give it to investors. Thus, no matter how I looked at it, I always felt crowdfunding was the only option that would truly work for us. And now that I have such a large international following on social media, it is literally possible for us to make this series happen by getting just a little bit from a lot of people. I mean, if my current subscriber base would just commit to contributing as little as $20, we'd be completely funded for at least one full episode. And since I've literally spent the last decade putting all of my content out for free, in the form of blogs on numerous websites and social media posts, doing weekly radio shows and posting hundreds of videos on YouTube, if I may humbly ask my audience, was all of that free content and hard work worth at least $20 to you? If so, please consider supporting this project so that I can get all the same information I've become known for over the years out to a much larger audience through the narrative of Seed. Now, up to this point, we've had enough support to pay our monthly office and operating expenses, get some computer equipment and software, 3D models, finance the various trips I've had to take, buy product inventory, and pay people to do a variety of things for the project over the years. And one of those people was a professional writer named Christopher Whitestone, who I hired to turn the first TV episode script into a fiction novel. And he did a really good job. But in so doing, he caused me to rethink a variety of things in the screenplays due to his creative embellishments. So I began the process of doing extensive rewrites on my scripts. In 2018, I hosted an online art competition wherein I opened the project up to worldwide participation. Artists were challenged to compete by creating artwork for a selection of scenes from the newly revised script. I've always wanted Seed to be sort of all-inclusive. It's meant to be a crowd-funded project, and I want people to feel as involved with it as they can, as much as they want to be. Back in 2013 and 2014, Rick Hummer and I and several other local actors got together, and it was really a passion project. We got together and did an audio drama. You can check that out at the Seed website. And, all of that was done in a very small office. I was going to do this meeting actually in that office. I couldn't get there in time. But you've probably seen it in a lot of my videos, the room with the two skulls behind me, the Peruvian conehead skulls. That room's like 12 by 12, something like that. It's not very big. And if you could have seen how that was done, I mean, just local actors coming in with a couple of microphones, and we would sit there and do recordings. And Rick's in Indiana, and I'm doing Skype calls with him, and he's playing the narrator and, you know, Pierce and Calhoun and multiple characters. There's one other guy who played Martinez. He was a dude from El Paso, and we were doing recordings. He had me on his phone on Skype directing him, and he had a little Zoom microphone sitting in his car, which actually makes for a pretty decent sound booth. And so he's doing his line in his car. It was really awesome. I mean, there's people from all over the country that came and got involved with it. And that was a very exciting project to work on. And this one is just as exciting for me. I decided that I'm going to publish. Here's actually the manuscript right here. This book is the first 4 scripts of Seed. And this one's all marked up. It's got all my notes in it. So I'm finalizing this, but this is the manuscript for a book that I'm going to publish hopefully before the end of this month. And I got to thinking, man, it'd be really cool if there was some illustrations in this book just to make it a little, just to give it a little more pop, you know, and to help people visualize what's going on. So I came up with the idea for an art contest. And, you know, I'm an artist myself, and look, anybody who's an artist that works in any of the creative arts, I mean, whether it's video or, you know, painting or whatever, you guys know what it's like. There's always that person out there saying, hey, can you just, you know, everybody wants something for free. And it gets really frustrating. I get it. Believe me, I get it. And so here I am thinking I want to do this art contest, and I didn't have any money. And I was basically asking for people to do things for free. And I started praying. I'm like, man, you know, I wish I had at least $1,000, because the idea was I wanted to create pull 10 scenes from the 4 scripts and give people the opportunity to choose from 10 scenes to create artwork. And I thought, well, you know, if I had at least $1,000, then I could give the winner $100 per scene, you know, whoever the winner is. And I kid you not, this was like, I go to bed with this prayer and this thought. And the next day I go to my P.O. box and I open it up, and somebody had sent me a donation for $1,000. And I said, okay, here we go. So the Seed Art Contest was launched, and I put it out through the email list. If you guys are not on that email list and you want to find out about other cool opportunities like this, go to robskiba.com/list, get signed up. So I posted that through the email newsletter, and I posted it on Facebook and stuff. And we had about just shy of 80 people who expressed interest in getting involved. And I'll show you what I sent them. I'll do a little screen share for you here. I sent them a PDF document after they signed a non-disclosure. And here are the 10 categories that I picked. And again, I just pulled scenes out of the 4 scripts. We have Attack of the Solomon Islands, the Kandahar Giant, the Great Fall, the Scapegoat's Cave, the Arrival on Mount Hermon, the Guardian and his Treasure, Azazel Attacks, Ending the Clash of the Titans, Signs of the Times, and A Den of Hybrids. And what I did was I gave a little blurb, kind of a little, you know, notes to help them along with each scene. And then you had the actual script for that scene. And so what to do was read the script, you know, pick which ones they wanted to do, which scenes they wanted to do, and just get creative. Come up with some cool artwork to represent each of these scenes. And so we had, like I said, just shy of about 80 people that submitted. Now, not everybody ultimately submitted artwork. I think the total is about 26 people, something like that. We'll find out in a minute, who submitted artwork. And we have over 50 pieces of art to choose from. And I'm not going to judge this by myself. I decided to call a couple of my friends who are also in the creative arts. Both of these gentlemen make a living in the creative arts. They're artistic people, and they work in the field of design and artwork and whatnot. And so I'm going to bring them on right now. You guys know Rick Hummer. Hey, Rick.
What's happening?
Good to have you back. And my other friend, Michael Salter. Hey, Michael.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going good, guys. Thank you guys so much for coming on. And this is going to be fun. If you'd like to see the full video of us judging the art competition, the link is in the description below. Once I had my winners, I incorporated their artwork into my manuscript and sent it off to the publisher. It wasn't long before I had the proof copy in my hands, and I was very happy with how it turned out. So I made the following vlog to show everyone. Okay, now, here's what makes the limited collector's edition really special. Not just the fact that it's all in color, but we're only doing 3,000 prints, and they're going to be numbered and authenticated. So you'll have my signature on the front page, and you're going to get a certificate of authenticity along with it that will show the print number out of 3,000. My signature, the print number, of course, will correspond with what you see on the front page there. So this is 000 because it's a proof. And, maybe I'll auction this off someday, the 000 version of it. What you're seeing here is pre-production, which, in the future, if Seed becomes as successful as we hope that it will become, then these scripts could be worth something, as collector's items. Just imagine if we become as successful as Star Trek or X-Files. I mean, why not, right? Let's shoot big. If we become that successful, then much later down the road, these pre-production scripts that started everything will be worth something, especially the ones that, even the basic version and the special edition version will be worth something, but the limited collector's edition, of course, will be worth more. So, and the fact that we're doing only 3,000 copies, the first 1,000 will retail for $49.95, the second will be $59.95, and the last 1,000 copies will be $69.95. So they're going to increase in price, as supply and demand works, right? So you're going to want to get it, if you're interested at all in this, you're going to want to get it as quickly as you can, so don't wait. Now, I did get a fair amount of pre-orders in, but I still lacked the funds to get the bulk order I felt I needed to handle the demand once I posted the link to buy them on the website.
I said, all right, Father, if we're going to do this, I know how to raise money. I know how to get out there. I know how to beat the streets and make things happen. I didn't want to do that because it'd be too easy for me to take credit for it. And, it's so big. It's way, it's one of these things where if it's going to happen, it's going to have to happen because he made it happen. So I've let it go, just held it out like this and said, Father, you need to provide for all of it. You're going to have to bring the talent. You're going to have to bring the finances to pay the talent. You're going to have to, somehow raise the money for the budget, all that kind of stuff. And I started initially writing to the what I imagine a $1 million budget. You write a lot different. If you know you're only going to have $1 million, you're going to write a certain way. If you know you're going to have $10 million or more, you're going to the more you think you're going to have for a budget, the more creative you can be and just let your mind go and create these epic scenes and whatnot without having to worry about how you're ever going to pay for it. Initially I was writing to a $1 million budget. And I felt like I was like, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, he's like, look, let me handle that. You just write. You just be creative. So the more I wrote and the more ideas that started coming to me, the more I realized this budget's going to go through the roof, And God's like, yeah, what's the problem, right? So we released this book in 3 different versions of it, right? Yeah, that's what the last few vlogs have been about. And that was something I believe I was inspired to do, to use as a fundraiser, to help create awareness for the project, build the audience, and, raise some money for things that need to happen. Well, even that, I'm thinking, okay, we got these books, but now how am I going to pay for them? So this is the thought that I have like this morning. So I go to this smoothie place. There's a tropical smoothie cafe that I go to every day. And there's a song playing on the radio, and the chorus was something like, just let it go, it'll come back to you, it always comes back, or something like that. It was something about letting it go and it always comes back to you. So I was like, that's an interesting song. So I get in the car, I go to the post office, and then I check my P.O. box. Well, I get this letter right here. Right? Now this is somebody ordering my red pill super package that I have online that has my books and DVDs on it, right? And it says, I enclosed a check to cover the cost of the shipping and handling and the red pill super package, and the rest of the money I would like
to donate to your seed project. Keep up the good work. We've learned so much from your teachings. May Yahuwah bless you. Okay, I get this letter, and it comes with a check for $500. So yeah, $165 will cover the red pill package, and the rest is going to buy the books. So I just, just let it go. Let go and let God. He's an awesome provider, and he's an amazing executive producer. Now I'm ready to start working on the orders that have come in. Please be patient. We've got a lot of orders. It's going to take a while to get them all out, and I'm expecting shipments to be coming in actually for the next few days. So we'll be getting more books in, and I'll try to send out at least a dozen a day until I've got them all filled. So I'm going to be beginning with number 101. Right now I've got my little stamper already set up here, ready to go with 101, and this one will be going out along with the rest of these tomorrow. 101, signed Rob Skiba. Got a lot more to go. Now, in March of 2018, just before I published that book, I had decided to attend the South by Southwest Multimedia Conference in Austin, Texas. It's a pretty huge deal, and I went there to immerse myself in everything I could learn about getting a successful TV series off the ground. So I just left the South by Southwest Conference in Austin. Wow, what an amazing event that was. It's still going on. I only stayed for 3 days, but the 3 days that I attended were phenomenal. That's something I think I'm going to go to every year. There's a lot to learn, a lot of great networking opportunities, which I did network quite a bit. Met some producers and some visual effects supervisors and a few other interesting people that I will have to follow up on when I get home. The first presentation I went to was Darren Aronofsky's, and I'm not really a Darren Aronofsky fan. Certainly did not like the Noah movie, but I will say his presentation was really quite good. It was sort of his 10 Commandments of filmmaking and his philosophy on making film and the journey that he took to get to where he's at. So I actually took quite a bit of notes. It was worth going to. I went to lectures primarily involving distribution, sales, marketing, visual effects for the indie filmmaker, stuff like that, and attended some really cool lectures on Westworld, the TV series Westworld. They had like an actors and writer panel. The executive producers were there talking about season 2. That was kind of cool. It was more listening to their take on the show. But there was another one that they did. It was called Westworld Transmedia, something about transmedia as it relates to marketing film and television shows. And basically what that meant was the campaign that they did before they even launched season 1 of Westworld was making an immersive environment for their customers, for the people that would, hopefully become fans of the show. And what that means in terms of building a fan base ahead of time, using immersive experience, web development and apps and stuff like that, and laid out 5 key components to building effective transmedia campaigns. And I was really excited because Seed definitely lends itself to the same types of possibilities that they used for Westworld. So anyway, real excited. I'll write or talk more about this later, but just very excited about what I learned there and ready to jump back into Seed because I've already written this much. All right, lots of scripts here. These are 5 episodes right here. I've actually got 6 written, but I'm still actually tweaking episodes 5 and 6.
I've got a meeting I'm getting ready to go to with another writer. His name is Rob Price. I met him actually at a Christian Media Association conference. I got there a little bit late for one of the presentations, so I was just standing in the back of the room, and this guy that was sitting at a table near the back area, he's looking at me. He finally got up and came over, and he's like, "Is your name Rob Skiba?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Oh wow, I love your stuff, man." I said, "Well, let's keep it down." Where the presenter was getting ready to talk, and I said, "Let's talk out in the hallway later." And we did. And he teaches script writing at a college, and has given me some really good constructive feedback and script coverage on my first 4 episodes. And I've given him some feedback on a script that he wrote. And anyway, we're both into the same type of research. He's familiar with my Archon Invasion book and all of that type of research. He did similar research. So getting ready to go to meet with him for lunch, and this may be a historic event. And so I'll tell you more about that a little bit later. See you. All right, I'm here at BJ's Restaurant with Rob Price.
Hello guys, how you doing? Rob and Rob, right?
Rob and Rob, right. And we both came bearing gifts for each other, scripts and books and all that kind of good stuff. So
thank you.
We are getting ready to eat and then have some lengthy conversations about moving Seed forward. So stay tuned. So it's now about 20 after 6. I met Rob Price at 1 o'clock, so we've been talking for a long time. But it was really, really good. I showed him, he's already been helping me out with the first 4 scripts as a sort of a script doctor, sounding board. He teaches script writing at a college level, and has been very helpful in bouncing ideas off of and looking at my script and helping me clean up dialogue a little bit. And Brian Godawa, same thing. Brian Godawa has helped me out the same way. Really trying to make these first 4 scripts as tight as we possibly can. And so far, everybody's really excited about it. I definitely am. And Rob's going to be helping me probably going into episode 6. I think we may co-write episode 6. And I may just turn episode 7 over to him, see what he does with it. But in the meantime, we are definitely kindred spirits, and I'm very excited to be working with him. We'll probably need to draw up something a little bit more of a formal contract in the very near future. Not everybody can work for free forever, so I understand that, but he's certainly been very gracious with his time and willingness to help, and so into Seed at the moment until we get funding. But man, I'm just supercharged. It's been a very exciting couple of weeks, actually.
It was in this season that I really began to wonder what is the best way to make this TV series happen. Originally, I'd always envisioned Seed as a live-action series on par with any other show of similar genre. But after being inspired one day to rewatch the 2007 movie Beowulf, I began to realize that may not be the best way to go. Perhaps the answer had always been right in front of me. I mean, here I had been doing all this 3D animation for stuff I was putting out for Seed, but the only reason I was doing it that way was because I didn't have the money to shoot it with live action. So I had always considered everything I was doing as simply pre-visualization, or what they call previs animations. Just something to convey the concept, which would later be redone with a live action shoot. But 3D animation software had really come a long way since Beowulf in 2007, and even since I first started working on my Seed trailer in 2010 for that matter. So the idea of doing the whole series as 100% CGI suddenly became a whole lot more appealing to me. With that in mind, I took another look at the previous work I'd been doing on the trailer, and in light of all the new research I'd been doing, all the rewrites that resulted from it, all the new content, scripts, storylines, and all that I've been coming up with, I thought it was time to start over from scratch with a whole new trailer. Something that would take a lot more into consideration than just what happened to my main character in his encounter with Azazel. So I drew up plans for a whole new trailer, wrote a script for it, and decided to reach out to some of the guys I'd met at the South by Southwest conference to see what it would take to bring this new trailer to life.
What do you think, in your estimation, is going to take, timeline-wise, to get some of that previs?
Man, it's going to be a ways out, because right now I'm spending most of my day signing, stamping, and mailing these books that people are buying like crazy. So as soon as my time kind of frees up in that regard, and I'm going to be dedicating a lot more of my time to finalizing the trailer. So I've got to just finish writing the trailer so I know exactly what's going to be depicted. And then after I know that, then that would be the time for me to start doing previs.
Okay.
So we're still a ways out. We're still, months out at this point, because I'm going to be heading out to California probably the end of this month for about a week, just be networking with producers and people out there that I've had contacts with. Because like I said, I've been a one-man show, and I'm only at this point ready to start building the team. All the credits we see at the end of the episode,
right.
like I need all those guys, So, I got to start finding all these people.
But that detailed conversation, which the previs will accommodate, is what part of how you know what exact team do you need and who would be involved for what amount of work and what amount of time. And hence, that would calculate budget and all that.
Yeah, I'm almost thinking, I might need to just find a guy that can do previs and
very well could be the case.
Sit with him. He might be my first priority.
Do it and spend a little time. I think that would be very, very well worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, that might be my first objective is to find that guy that can do the real low res, and I could just sit here and talk him through, if I could sit with the guy or even do Google Hangouts with him or whatever, because I know when I'm writing the script, I know the shots in my head. I don't know that I'll be directing it. Probably not, but I know what I want. So
that's exactly what I mean.
Yeah, we need
to be visualized in a very blocked out, very crude way, but well paced and well framed.
Yeah,
those are the key issues of that the previs needs to convey, because then we talk details.
Right. All right. Well, that's my homework assignment then. Okay, so I just finished having a Google Hangout with the visual effects house in Georgia. A couple of really cool guys. One of the guys I met at the South by Southwest conference in Austin back in March. Man, I'll tell you what. I am generally against cloning, but I could really use about 10 more of me. Because it always seems like no matter what, even when you start trying to get other people involved, there's still a whole lot that only I can do that I have to get done. And man, time is my problem. Time is my enemy. It's not that I don't have the ability. I have the ability. I just don't have the time. It's like, man, I got to do I think my priority right now is finalizing a script for the trailer. I'm going to make probably about a 3-minute long trailer, because that's what's going to be needed to really sell the vision to everybody. I know what I'm playing the movie in my head all the time, but the only way I'm going to be able to get other people to catch the vision, yeah, they can read the scripts and stuff, and that's cool. They play it out in their head. But when it comes to visual effects and trying to figure out a budget for the episodes based on the visual effects and stuff like that, I got to do previs. I gotta do basically a glorified stick figure in 3D animation. Nothing super fancy, but it's still, it takes time. Kind of a shot by shot, angle by angle, camera move by camera move. Previs of the special, really the whole trailer. So that's my next big objective, I think. I'm still working on the show Bible, but I could probably stop working on that for now and switch gears and work on the trailer first, trailer script. I've already written episodes 5 and 6, but they need some work. So I've been tweaking them and working on them and doing some revisions with that. I've also been kind of on the side talking with other writers about helping them come up with ideas for where I want the story to go in episodes 7 and forward. So I think I'm just going to kind of take a break from all of that and just focus all of my attention on creating the trailer script, which then I can use that to create the previs animations that I can then send out to this effects house and probably a few others and really start trying to nail this down, because that's what it's going to take. Even if I get somebody, it'd be great if I had maybe there's somebody out there that can do previs, but it's ultimately I'm still going to end up having to do a lot of it because it's all in my head. So even if I got somebody out there that can do storyboards or previs, I got to get what's in my head into their head. So, by the time I do all that, it's almost like I can do it myself. So that's, I guess, where I'm at right now. I'm mailing out books, and I'm going to continue to mail out books. And the reason I created those books in the first place, is the limited collector's edition, is to use the funds. It's a fundraiser, so that's why I created it. And if everything goes well, we're able to sell all 3,000 of them, then I'll have the budget to start hiring other people. Because right now, asking extremely talented people to work for free, it just doesn't. It never works out. Everybody's got to eat. We all got to keep the lights on. Keep the roof over our head. So, but with this book, with the sales of the limited collector's edition, should be able to raise enough money to start hiring other people to take some of this load off of me, even though there's still a lot of it that's just going to have to be on me because it's all in my head. I'll tell you, anybody who thinks it's easy to make a TV show or a movie, you don't know until you actually have to do it. It's a lot of work. It's not just, a lot of people just write a script and then they sell it. Okay, woohoo, yay, and somebody else goes and makes it. But, if you're not of the mindset, and I am not of the mindset of selling, well, you got to do it yourself then.
As I continued to really wrestle with the whole idea of whether or not I actually wanted to do Seed as CGI instead of as live action, in the summer of 2019, I had the opportunity to co-produce and experience a bit of the shooting of an independent faith-based movie called Sleeper Agent. A mentor of mine once told me, if you want to achieve your dreams, help somebody else achieve theirs. And this was my opportunity to do that. Sleeper Agent was the project Robbie Davidson told me about. It was the dream of a comedian named Leland Klassen. So here was an opportunity that presented myself to help somebody make their dreams come true, while at the same time giving me some more hands-on experience on set of a movie production. So Robbie Davidson and I flew out to Denver, and we were able to be on set for some of the filming of this movie. And now, see, I already knew that location scouting could be one of the most expensive and time-consuming parts of movie making, but I really got a taste of it one night when production had to be halted for a couple of hours due to bugs.
The problems of location shooting. Bugs.
Bugs. They were too noisy. We weren't able to get any good sound recording of the actors because of the bugs. We actually had to send one of the production crew up in a tree to keep the bugs quiet. But just watch any making of behind-the-scenes documentary of your favorite blockbuster movie. Inevitably, you're going to hear story after story about sets being destroyed by weather and other problems occurring on location shoots.
Whenever you make a movie, there is a considerable amount of pain involved on all levels. And there was a lot of things that went wrong. There was a lot of struggle to get it made. Millions of things go wrong every day. Crazy things. You go to Tunisia and you go to shoot and it rains. And everybody said, well, it hasn't rained here in 50 years, and we're in the middle of a dried lake bed, so it turns into a lake. And that's where Luke's homestead is. And the entire Tunisian armies, all their trucks get bogged down in the mud, and you can't get them out, and you can't shoot. The sand crawler set blows over, and that's just sort of a typical day. And you have to stay on schedule. It's just kind of a controlled nightmare.
Indeed, lots and lots of money can be wasted shooting on locations. Beyond that, the whole process can be very rough on a marriage. I mean, there's a reason why lots of marriages fail in Hollywood, right? Constantly being away, traveling, and shooting on location can take a toll on any family. Now, having already been through one painful divorce, I wasn't interested in any potential for a rerun of that sort of thing. So, as I considered all of these issues, it just kept confirming in my head that Seed needed to be done as a 100% CGI project. That way, essentially everything can be done in a large warehouse with a team working out of in-house or even international production suites. About the same time, The Mandalorian was in production, and I started to think this may actually have the best of all worlds, pardon the pun. They're shooting live action, but they're doing it inside of something called a volume, which enables them to have very realistic locations, but all of it's built into a computer using the Unreal game engine. So the actors act in front of these high-resolution, basically video walls that effectively project the environments around the actors. So they just work with immediate props on set, and the backgrounds are provided via CGI. And not only that, but the lighting of the background itself provides the lighting on the characters. So you don't really have to do a whole lot of studio lighting. The screens themselves of the environment provide realistic environmental lighting onto the characters, which I just think is amazing. And the results speak for themselves.
To be fair, the initial investment in a virtual set like this is huge. However, the creators claim that money saved from travelling to locations, building new sets, and costly post-production can make the investment worth it. Along with saving time and money, the team developed a system that allowed artists to make changes and control the world on the day of shooting. Settings like exposure, colour, animation playback, and fill lighting are available to the filmmakers at a moment's notice. If they want to move a mountain from one side of the virtual set to the other, they can, right there on set. Not only is it helpful for the actor, who no longer has to imagine where that mountain is, but it's a game changer for the director of photography.
Because in the distance, if there is a mountain range that is a story point, then the DP is no longer guessing where those elements are. He can frame up to them.
The virtual set constructed for Season 1 was 75 feet in diameter, 21 feet high, and also had a roof composed of LEDs. The cast and crew refer to this space as the volume.
And we had doors that can kind of close in to almost give you full 360-degree coverage of LED screens minus the floor. It's driven by a small group of machines running Unreal and our stagecraft technologies. The amount of green screen that's being used is massively reduced, and the sky's the limit right now.
So Seed may eventually go this route too, but for now, I've determined that our most practical option is to just do everything as pure 100% CGI. Meanwhile, in 2019, I also got more intentional about completing my first comic book. I realized each Seed TV script consisted of a teaser and 5 acts, each of which could easily make for individual comic books. So I could have 6 comic books produced per television script, and when all 6 are done, I could package it all up into one graphic novel. So effectively, I'd get 7 comic book products per screenplay. And if I did it right, the comic books could also serve as the storyboards for the animators. So I began to raise money and look for talented artists. And through Fiverr.com, I found an amazingly talented artist in Venezuela named Jason Beleza, who would later introduce me to his partner in Spain, Antonio de Zayas. Together, these two made for a powerful team, and we got to work on turning the teaser for episode 1 into our first comic book. We finished this first issue in December of 2019, releasing it as a limited collector's edition, of which we only printed 500 copies. And they sold out almost immediately, which was very encouraging to me. Now that I knew I had an audience and the potential for something really good here, I realized I didn't really need to make another trailer. Instead, I thought, why not get started on making an actual episode? Even if I had to just do it one teaser and one act at a time. I mean, why not? Instead of trying to raise money to do an entire episode or season, maybe it was more realistic to start off in bite-sized chunks. I'd just do what I could, when I could, however I could. And whether I did a new trailer or did the full teaser instead, it was likely going to cost about the same amount of time and money. But at least with the teaser, I already had the comic book to go along with it, which would simultaneously serve as our storyboard and previs. As I was thinking about going this route, I decided to reconnect with Mornay and some of the contacts he told me about in South Africa back in 2012. He arranged for a Skype call, and I approached them with the idea of turning my comic book into the CGI version for the teaser of the pilot episode. So he makes a few phone calls, sets me up with this opportunity to talk to a producer named Johan, who's amazing. And we hit it off really good, and we started bouncing numbers around. Now, first of all, our money goes a lot farther in South Africa. So when I say this is even the number I'm about to say is big to you and I. In the industry, this is catering budget. Okay. But they believed in the project. They're like, you know what, we want to work with you. So they were willing to work below scale, and they threw a number of $101,000. And I said, done, let's do it. I didn't have $101,000. I committed because I looked at the signs. I'm like, okay, Father, you said beyond expectations back in 2012. You brought Sheila and I out there. You opened up all those doors in South Africa. And then in faith, this is part of the faith walk. You have to take action.
Yeah.
In faith, I committed to $101,000 that I did not have. Right. This was 9:00 in the morning on a Tuesday. Okay. The same day at 2:00 in the afternoon, I went to the post office and somebody had mailed me a check for $100,000.
Stop!
For seed. Okay. Now that means that Yahuwah placed it on their heart several days before to write the check for it to be in my P.O. box the same day that I had committed to that number. It happened to come in the mail, right?
Rob.
So these are, I mean, I could spend all night. I'm trying to give you the big stories to help people understand. I could tell stories like this all night long.
Okay. First of all, hold on. Key terms here. A willing vessel, right? Yielding wherever he takes you, trusting, right? Wherever he takes you, even if it's against the grain and it's contrary to popular belief, but you got to trust him. Being that willing vessel, yielding, and then allowing him to develop your faith, even when it's difficult, even when you're being tried, but to stand and endure so that you can produce big faith like this. That's really what it is, because Yah is not a respecter of persons, Rob. So it had really nothing to do with who you were, but Absolutely. What you were willing to do so that your faith could produce his purposes in your life. That's huge. 100%. This is a powerful message. And really, even though it's tied into your project, everything you're saying is supposed to encourage the person that's going to listen, and we'll probably get a lot more views after the show is over. But you know what, Dr. P, for those people who are saying, well, Yah gave me a word when I was 17 and nothing's come to fruition, they have no idea how everything is working together for their good, right? You endured, you waited, you were patient. Yeah.
Okay. Seed I've been working on for 10 years.
10 years.
Right. And it was almost exactly 10 years to the day when I committed to $100,000.
Crazy. Awesome.
That I had started writing the story. And, I don't want to mention names on the air because I don't know, that the person would want me to mention their name. But if you're out there and you're listening, thank you just doesn't cover it. I can't even begin to express, but thank you for being faithful to doing what Yahuwah placed on your heart to do. But for it to, it makes me wonder if I didn't do it, what would have happened, right? But I did commit to it that morning, and that afternoon it was there in the mailbox. Now, what happened shortly after that was another miracle that goes back 20 years. See, 20 years ago, I had this idea because the biggest thing with filmmaking is distribution. If you don't have distribution, you don't have anything. You've got a movie that you and your family can watch in your basement. That's it. You have to have distribution. Well, they call it P&A budget, prints and advertising. So many times the print and advertising budget can be almost as much as the movie. Hollywood spends crazy amounts of money, not just for the production of the movie, but to promote the movie. That's why, you live out there in LA. When the next movie comes out, what's on Sunset Boulevard and Hollywood Boulevard? They paint the whole sides of buildings for the movie, whatever the latest.
Half of the time, that's the way I see it because I don't watch too much TV. So half of the time,
it's on the billboard.
That's the way I'm like, oh, ooh, that looks good, and I'll go home and look for it, and then
driving down the road, you ever see that billboard that says, "Do billboards work?" Just did. You ever see that?
Hello,
When the billboard company itself is advertising for itself, do billboards work? Just did. Call now to get your ad here.
Perfect.
Well, I've known for a long time, being in marketing and things like that you've got to get the word out for whatever it is you're doing. Especially if you're a self-published author or you're doing everything I'm doing is in-house. We publish our own books. We do our own production of everything. Well, that's great, but you have to beat the streets and you got to get on every talk show you could get on. You got to do everything you can to get the word out. And 20 years ago, I had this vision of what I call the Admobile, because you see billboards for 8 or 10 seconds and you drive by it, right? Well, but what if you're stuck in traffic on the 101, right? And you're stuck behind that same car, for 3 hours trying to get wherever you're trying to get to, right? Try to get to Culver City or whatever, you're stuck in traffic looking at the back of the same car. I thought, well, what if there was an ad on the back of that thing? So I came up with this idea for the Admobile back in 1999. Well, right after I get the check to do the production, the $100,000, I was thinking, well, how can I get the word out? I mean, like I could get the word out locally, start out locally, but get the word out before. And I'm like, man, the technology to do the Admobile the way I wanted to do it 20 years ago was way too expensive, but now is a lot cheaper. So, but it was still going to cost me about 30 grand. So I was like, well, maybe I can raise some money to create this thing and then create a fleet of these things and start getting the word out this way. Dude, why I'm not going to pay Sony? I'm not going to, the wealth of the wicked is stored up for the righteous.
Right.
So
For you.
Why do the righteous always give their money to the wicked? You make a Christian movie, but you use Sony for your distribution. Well, guess what? You might get maybe what you put into it back, but then Sony's going to take the rest of the profits and make crap with the money that Christians just paid for to go see a Christian movie. I don't want to use Sony. I want to do my own marketing. So then somebody mails me a check for $33,000, and look what I was able to build.
What?
Yeah,
you did that?
Last December we built the Admobile, and so built the Admobile.
That's cool.
It started out as a Seedmobile, and I'm still going to use it for seed. I had it seed the series, and this thing goes up and down like when you park it in the garage. This thing lowers the truck beds. It's got this motor, and then it rises back up. So I can promote seed or whatever else on it. What I'm using it now, I'm still promoting seed with it, but also using it to promote anybody.
Is it digital?
It's these are 50-inch video screens.
What?
Yeah, they're
wow.
They're bright television screens, basically. They call them nits. You got to have like a standard television has about 300 nits. These are 800 and 1,000 nits brightness. So they're like really bright at night and pretty good in the daytime. I'm hoping to raise more money to get brighter screens, but the brighter screens are like $8,000 a piece. But so thing is, I call it make your ad mobile. So if you've got a business or a book or something you want to promote, so for me, this is another revenue source. Everything that I bring in for revenue is going into seed. Because I gotta raise $3 to $4 million an episode.
Yeah.
Now that's not to say
has to raise 3 to 4.
He does, and he's already shown that he can. But it is Yahuwah that gives us power to gain. Right.
Oh my goodness.
So this was a vision he gave to me, and then he made the provision to build it. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to build it. So now I can be driving down the street, broadcast, and actually it has a broadcaster on it, so that if you're like within 100 feet of my truck, you could tune your FM radio station to whatever I'm broadcasting and hear it.
Yeah, you were the right guy for the job.
So
what?
I'm saying all these things, and the people out there who contribute to make this possible, who you are. Thank you for letting the Holy Spirit work through you to do these things. Made these things possible. So Yahuwah had brought the resources to us, and I got busy with it right away. But in terms of movie and television production, that's not a lot of money. For me, on the other hand, of course, that's a massive amount of money, and even though it had just been provided, I was quite nervous sending it to the other side of the world, especially to people that I really didn't know. And likewise, they were probably a little bit nervous dealing with an unknown filmmaker in the United States themselves. So Mornay was stuck in the middle trying to calm everyone's fears and concerns.
So here's the thing, we're with the thing. So I'm kind of the guy that's introducing you to Johan and them. I'm saying to you, hey, you can trust Johan. I don't know Hilton. I know his reputation. He started sort of the top visual effects company in South Africa. They do huge productions.
Yeah.
I know Johan, and I can tell you, he's sometimes even lost money on productions to make sure that it happens well. So that I've seen.
Yeah.
His reputation is very important to him, the work he delivers, and that's why I felt better to go with these guys that are connected to Johan, because of my trust with Johan. Now, at the same time, I'm saying to these guys, hey, you can trust Rob. Rob's my friend and whatever. But in both cases, you've got to just take my word for it. So if either of you get screwed, I'm going to be the loser in the process. Because obviously I've introduced you guys.
Right.
So I from a quality point of view, I know in the beginning, Johan, when I discussed this with him initially, he said, look, I must be honest with you. My guys don't normally work with things on those budgets. They work with much bigger budgets, much bigger product, but he'll discuss it with them, and he did. And they were keen. So they were very keen and to get involved. And I don't think, their reputation also depends on their show reels and whatever they show. So they're not going to want to produce something that's crap, to be honest,
Once everyone had settled into a comfort zone of working together and getting the ball rolling, we started having regular conference calls to answer questions and set proper expectations. Here's a clip from the first discussion I had with Hilton Traves to give you a little behind-the-scenes taste of pre-production dialogue for a project like this. I showed Mornay something the other day. There's a thing on a show on Netflix called Love, Death, and Robots. I don't know if you've seen it, but
I know it pretty well. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had access to the animation on it. Yeah.
Yeah. This is an episode called Shapeshifters, and it's not quite photorealistic, perfect, but it's pretty darn good, obviously. Now, with the budget we have, it may be a pipe dream for me to think that we can get this close. I don't know. I don't know. The renderings that I did in Daz Studio.
Yeah, these are pretty damn good.
Yeah.
For where we're at, I think they're in a good place. But yes, I mean, it's to get to what you're wanting on what you showed on Netflix. That's quite a bridge further than this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't know, if it's just a function of textures or what's involved with making it look that way. I mean, these were just renders that I did out of Daz. When how does that look when it translates into Houdini or Unreal Engine? I don't know. I saw some renders that Johan sent this morning. They're really small. They look pretty good. So I don't know where to set my expectations.
What they did on the Love, Death, Robots series, they did a lot of 3D scanning on characters, and that takes quite a fair amount of time to get into that space. So if you want more photoreal type stuff, that means in terms of the actual characters, we've got to get proper high-res scans of people's heads. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that we've done on different shows, and to achieve that is quite a different side of things. And also, it's also the way that the muscle structures are built in the faces. So the subtleties of motion and movement, that is something that in where we're currently at, I don't think we're going to be able to achieve something which is going to be very detailed in the facial structure. It needs R&D. It needs time to develop that. So those things will take time. So you'll be in the region of somewhere where possibly where Tintin was, somewhere in that sort of space, on where we're at now with these characters, because these characters would need to be really completely remodeled in terms of structure, and we would need to put muscle systems into the faces to get that kind of emotive communication that would happen between facial data and what your expression is. For example, on a CG character, to be able to drive that, that's going into a more photorealistic world, even though the textures may not be.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So, in terms of texture, like I said, these are the textures that just came right out of DAZ. So, that's good enough for me, at least for now. I realize, obviously I'm not playing with a budget you guys are probably used to. So, I can only do so much with what I have, right?
Cool.
So, but, and texture-wise, I'm happy with this, at least for what we're trying to do right now. If we're able to use these textures, that's great. In terms of the rigging of the face and all that stuff, I guess none of that translates through in the FBX file. Is that correct?
Not yet. No, there's nothing in the FBX files in terms of the rigging of the facial stuff at this point. So
I might be able to fix that. I just recently purchased the Real Illusion package of Character Creator 3, iClone 7, and 3D Exchange. The 3D Exchange pipeline allows me to put all the expressions into the character in DAZ, and then export that FBX with the expressions into 3D Exchange. And in 3D Exchange, it retains the facial rigging when I bring it into iClone. So
if one can get that data, and I don't know what the levels of stuff is on 3D Exchange, but if one can get that data in terms of multiple face shapes, and the geometry doesn't change, in other words, the topography or the topology of the geometry stays consistent from face to face to face for each expression, then those can then be utilized within Houdini or Maya as blend shapes to then drive facial expression. And be able to drive the various characteristics that need to be driven. So whatever you can give us in terms of that would then help us, and then we can build further in-betweens as far as that's concerned.
Okay. So we'll have to do some tests in that regard, and if you guys tell me what works and what doesn't work, I mean, there's stuff on my end that, to save you guys time and save me money, I can work on as much as possible on my side, before getting it to you.
Okay, look, I mean, I think the thing is that if you can have a look and see if you can export a Limbic as opposed to FBX, that transports a lot more information across from system to system. So Limbic is a far better format. Whether or not it's there, I don't know. FBX is okay, but there's certain things that just don't go across properly. So if you've got a Limbic as an output format, that'll be great. That'll help us immensely already. And anything that you can do that, like what you're suggesting, that will also help.
Okay.
I think, Rob, more importantly, in terms of this, the technical side of the models, I think that's one thing, and we can establish that pipeline, and Matt can set up the different aspects to work directly with you in terms of getting data backwards and forwards as far as that's concerned in a timeless manner. We will set up a system called FTrack, and FTrack is a system that allows you to be able to log in to see the work in progress. And we will then, as soon as something's there, we publish it. You can make notes, you can make directorial comments, etc. on that system. I think more importantly, though, is that the actual timing and the weight and the storytelling side of things, in terms of rough frame ups or anything that you've got that would help us to be able to set the blocking out for each of the scenes, so because each of the scenes will need to go through blocking. Adding additional cameras into a CG scene is pretty straightforward and pretty easy. I think the important thing is, like any film that you're going to be doing, we need a master plate or a master blocking in terms of performance. And once we've got the master performance, we can then say, okay, well, we want to now cross-reference into character A, character B on tight shots over the shoulders, come across the line, all of those kind of things in terms of normal storytelling. So that once we know what our master blocking is and what the story is, we can then suggest a whole bunch of cameras. You will then be able to say to us, okay, well, from a performance point of view, I want to see the guy jump down the hill, and he's got to roll down the hill, and then he's got to land, and he's got to come up with a gun in his hand, as an example. And that needs to happen in 12 seconds as a piece. So I think the story beats and the importance in terms of those story beats, I think those things we need to have highlighted. and we need to have some kind of indication as to what your thought process is behind that, so that we can start to block it out for you.
Yep. In terms of how we work out the how do I direct from this side of the pond, you know, I'm flexible. You guys tell me what you need and what would work and what wouldn't work. I can certainly try to work around whatever you guys have. You know, I have no deadlines except my own self-imposed deadlines. I work for myself, and this is all I do. So,
right. Okay.
That I'm very adaptable to whatever, you know, works best in terms of a workflow that works for you guys.
Okay. Look, I mean, I think once we get the storyboards, I think is a really good starting point. The models and the technology, I think we can solve all of those issues. I don't think that there's any problems in that respect. I think that the important thing is, let's get the storylines going, let's get this thing going, and we can start rigging and setting up the characters, and we can start doing some technology tests. We will set up an F-track pipeline, because that is without a doubt the best way, and it's the way we work with all major features anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So anything that we're working with any major studio, we have an F-track system that goes in place. We'll put all the relevant parties who need to be part of that process, and I think what we need to do is just do I'll sit with Matt and I'll chat to Matt, and we'll do a requirements in terms of how do we move from A to B. From a directorial point of view, your storyboard becomes our base Bible. Then blocking becomes the next layer that then goes into it. So Mona and Johan and the guys then will also have access to everything and be able to drop it into a working cut.
Mm-hmm.
So from there, we then start to drop in terms of from storyboard, we'll then layer in the next batch of blocking, and we can then get a sense of timing. So I think it's important that we get a timing based on the storyboard, and we lay that out as point one. Point two is then blocking, and then point three, we start going into finesse. In the interim, while we're doing all of that, the guys can start rigging and prepping and getting the characters to be able to perform. And then the next stage of that is going to be, okay, dialogue and lip sync and all of those other good things that one needs to do in terms of making sure the eye lines and all of those beats are hit correctly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that sounds very good. What was that format again? I was trying, how do you spell it, and what is the extension, the Limbic or whatever?
Limbic. It's normally ABC, I think.
ABC is the extension? Okay.
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
And it's called Alembic?
Alembic. ALEMBIC.
Okay, I will look into that. That doesn't sound familiar in the DAZ format, but I can see what I can figure out on my end. In the meantime, I'll get you that FBX with the facial rigging too.
Great, that'll be fantastic.
Okay, so in terms of the storyboards, would you like me to just create kind of my shot list and timing? You know, put angles and timing. You know, to start getting that to you.
Angles, I don't think. Yeah, if you can get whatever you can that you think is going to help us to tell your story. Whatever you can. So if you can get us sketches, you can get us anything that you feel, whether it's going to complement the comic book shots, etc. And say, okay, we've got a plane here. We've got the angle is going to be from the nose of the plane into the cockpit, and give us some kind of indication of what that's going to be. We then need to go through and see what all the various assets that we've got and where they all fit in terms of breaking it down from the script and saying, okay, well, we've got one aircraft, we've got 5 characters, we've got 2 guns, we've got this, we've got foliage, we've got bush, we've got all of the other bits that are going to go through it, because the asset build is still going to take quite a long time to get that in play.
Mm-hmm.
But while that's going down in play, we can put down very rudimentary 3D geometry to be able to tell the story in terms of where the cameras are going.
Mm-hmm.
And then that would then get finessed and grown out of that as it goes.
After having a few more conversations like that, I knew exactly what they needed from me, and they knew what I was expecting on my end. So the first thing I did was take my comic book, and in combination with the 3D models I had created, I set out to making a rough cut previs of the entire production, where I played all the characters and mouthed the sound effects. Alright, we better get a grid on this. Halsey would want to know we've got contact this far south. Way ahead of you, boss. Keep an eye on him, Cat. I'm gonna... Scratch that. We've got incoming. So much for optimism. Oh, great. And whose bright idea was it to send us out here without a wingman? Cut the chatter. Let him have it, Cat. Roger that. Okay. You want some of this? Come and get it. So So I did the whole teaser like that and sent it off to them. As preliminary modeling and animation began, and with my comic book storyboard in hand, I flew out to Cape Town in December of 2019 to oversee the directing of our actors for the motion capture process. There I got to meet the animation, music, and sound design team in person and see exactly how Seed would finally come to life. And in part 3, I will show you what all of that was like, and at the end of that broadcast, I will include the worldwide premiere of our first finished production, Seed Paradise Lost, which is the 8-minute opening teaser for the pilot episode of the TV series. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video presentation. If you did, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, like the video, and share it on your favorite social media sites. There's a lot more to come, so stay tuned and we'll see you back next time.